Hello. Welcome to Season XV of the Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. In each episode, we both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about what we liked, what we hated, if we were scared, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season, we're watching movies from the 90s and talking about how they fit into the larger picture of 90s horror and how each year from that decade stacks up against the others. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the episode. So now that we're wrapping up Season XV and going back and giving a saving throw to some of the years of the 90s that didn't put their best foot forward, we've had a chance to revisit some movies that have come up on a lot of lists that didn't make it for whatever reason the first time through. And I would say that the movie we reviewed for this week is one that has been on like every list that I've seen of best horror movies of the 90s, and then specifically for 1995. And so it barely didn't make the criteria before because it made like 113 million at the box office and our cutoff was 100. But I felt like 1995 really did need a little bit of help to even be competitive for when we do the final rankings. And so this week we went back and watched the movie Species.
I'm still shocked that they think that this is one of the greatest of the decade.
It was weird to me too. Yeah. Not to tip the hand too much, but it was...
Well, just more so, I'm not talking about like specifics within the film. It's just more so just like this of like, yeah, Event Horizon. Like there's so many on the list that we did. This one, that's interesting. People are weird. Yeah.
Ghoulies 4.
One of the best, yeah.
90s were action-packed.
You're damn right.
Yeah. No, it's kind of weird just to see like how things age over time. And this one had multiple sequels and they're pretty much all available for streaming. And it's just kind of weird to me because I feel like this one was just completely outside of my experience. Like I've never heard anyone talk about it. Like I don't have any friends that were like, oh yeah, Species is my favorite movie. It's just one that has always existed on lists. And that's been the primary way that I've interacted with it.
Yeah, I think I've only seen the name, I think was my experience in the past, but like not ever recommended. Maybe in reference to like a fact or something to another movie that we're doing, but yeah. Yeah. I did notice like while watching, there were a couple of things that were referenced like in, you know, just because it's the 90s, you know, things are constantly being referenced from other movies, but I didn't hear specific about Species. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I am excited to talk about this one with you because I have another 90s movie that we watched that I feel like this one is very similar to, that we both liked, and I'm curious to see how this one stacked up in your mind in comparison. Yeah. But before we do that, I'm going to do a quick introduction, and then we can get into the Saw Gerrera teams up with Doc Ock way before that was legal details.
I like it.
That was a Star Wars reference and a Marvel reference, so I didn't expect you to get either one of them.
That's why I didn't get it. But I was going to say, this isn't Stranger Things? Details.
Nice. In 1995, MGM/UA Distribution brought us Species, a sexy sci-fi horror film directed by Roger Donaldson. This movie's star-studded cast deliver the story of a genetic experiment gone wrong after scientists splice an alien gene sequence with human DNA. When their creation breaks free, it's a race against time to try and contain her before she starts a reproductive cycle that could mean the end of humanity. This movie was made on a budget of $35 million and made over $113 million at the box office. Species 1, 2, and 3 can all currently be streamed on Max.
Max out here doing it right.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the higher quality like streaming services.
Yeah. Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Got that HBO money.
They do.
Yeah. So this movie was interesting. First of all, just wanted to point out SETI is real. The thing that they talked about in the beginning for scanning the skies for extraterrestrial contact. That's a real thing. Has a real nice website. Morgan Freeman's on the front page, so you should check it out if that's at all interesting to you. Kind of surprised Tom DeLonge's not on there, but yeah.
That's actually a good point.
Wanted to ask, to start off, what type of horror would you call this one? I mean, I think sci-fi is probably the easy label to throw on it, just because the setup involves science. But in the execution of the movie and the actual horror, what were the vibes you were getting from this one?
Definitely creature horror and whatever Stranger Things is categorized under as well.
Interesting. Go on. I'm curious what you mean by Stranger Things.
I mean, this is basically the same concept, isn't it? We're basically this alien being is, a lab rat. They break out, and then mayhem kind of ensues. Right? Is the girl in Stranger Things not an alien?
I see what you're saying. I don't think so. I think she just had she was experimented on or something. But I guess that actually matches this kind of even better, because the girl in this one wasn't technically an alien either in the beginning. She just had alien DNA injected into hers or something. So yeah, okay, I'll give it to you. I was skeptical. You win.
At the beginning, she takes off running. She eats chocolate pudding. It's just all of it. And I'm just man, okay. No, yeah, definitely creature horror, I guess. I would say sci-fi mystery creature horror. What would you categorize it as?
So I would 100% agree with creature horror. I mean, that is, as far as the different horror subgenres that we've spent a lot of time watching, I think this matches the most with that. But I think that it also is a lot more suspense type horror than it was action, if that makes sense. I think a lot of it was meant to be kind of the dread of knowing that people were being put in danger because of their proximity to this creature. And she was almost kind of like a Venus flytrap, where it's it looks like this very pleasant flower, but as soon as you get close, lights out, game over. So almost like she was, her human form was bait. But then the motivation wasn't just death and destruction, it was reproduction, but it was just unpredictable kind of as to what she was looking for. So it was a weird vibe. I feel like this movie was very much a made in the 90s movie and probably wouldn't get made today type movie.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't have a ton of beef with it, but I definitely had the feeling this probably makes more sense on paper than on film. Yeah, just either on book, in a book or in the script or something. Because there were just a few times where I'm just I don't know what the hell's going on. And I promise, if I could show you the amount of times I watched this, one, because we were supposed to record this a few weeks ago, and then I rewatched it for last week, and I had to miss it that week, and then again, and it's still, there were some parts I'm just I have no idea. I'm cool with it though. I'm cool with not knowing, but it wasn't bad. But this is definitely straight up a 90s film, just from, well, I mean, obvious way they dress and everything, the atmosphere of it, but there were a few one-liners in it. There was over the top, it was kind of aggressive with some of the nudity in this, and this is coming from me.
It really was, yeah.
And that was also my experience with the 90s too, where some of the stuff you just had a scene where with just the ladies' bee-boos just flopping, but it pertained to no story, there was no real reason for it. But I think that they wouldn't be able to keep the same story and remake it to today either. Just, without getting into,
Yeah, and I honestly, so my working theory currently on why this one is on all the lists because people who make lists now were probably at an age in the 90s where they were like just old enough to get to watch this one, and it made quite the impression.
Dude, I swear on my life, I was just thinking about that, but more so from the Esquire list that season that we did, where I was like, I wonder if that dude was just like super old or something, just out of the loop. And he was like, these are why, or super young and trying to look cool to, and put some movies on there that were a little individual. Anyway, I was thinking the same thing, but I think you're absolutely right. And that's an interesting piece to think about, like moving forward, how much does that change like previous films and stuff as far as, critics go, but like who are critics,
Yeah.
I'm asking.
It was interesting. I think a lot of times, the impression, I could see someone watching this movie in the 90s having it make a strong impression on them. That makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. But watching it now, there was just a lot of like, wait, what? And I'm actually so I don't think that this is going to propel 1995 to be a contender for one of our like top years for 90s movies. But I am so glad that we did it, simply because I feel like it is sitting right at the intersection of a thing that we've been talking about that changed a lot in the 90s, and that is the special effects. Mm-hmm. To me, this movie was a tale of two approaches to special effects, one that worked really well and one that really fell flat. And maybe it's just because we've watched like later 90s movies more recently and seen like the CG get better. But man, it was rough in this one. And I felt like anytime they were trying to do practical effects, it was really good and convincing and like fit the movie and was within like their ability to pull it off. Whereas every time they tried to use CG, it was just distractingly bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was also thinking about this while watching a modern film over the weekend, and you could tell that they use computer effects, but it's almost like it's being used a little bit different now than what we had not almost. It's being used a little bit different now than in the 90s. Yep. One of the examples I was thinking of was, this was a live action film with humans and everything. And the way they used CGI was like with the intro, like the credits and everything of the movie. And then there were none used after that. And it was almost like to help, I guess, do like, kind of bring you up to speed with like what happened kind of thing. Like, so it's the movie technically starts and then it cuts into the intro of the film and then it shows time passing. And it's like, I feel like in the 90s, it was almost just like, maybe like what we are with AI now, where, it's like, hey, there's this new technology out and it's like, sweet, let's try it with everything. And then as the years go by, you kind of like dial it in and get it, and that's what I kind of felt like with this one too. Cause I'm with you. Like there were times where I was like, that's not too bad. And you're like, oh, that's not CGI. That's a legit effect there. But, there was definitely like, I don't think it was too distracting, maybe because I wasn't like actively looking for it either.
Well, one of the things that stood out to me is like they had the weird dream sequences with like the blurry alien porn or whatever it was. And it was really hard to tell what was going on. And it was really just kind of weird and confusing, which made it not scary enough to really add anything to the movie. Like to me, those scenes did not enhance the horror or the suspense whatsoever. It was just like, what the hell are they trying to do here? Yeah. And anytime I'm like taken out of the moment of it, especially in a movie that I feel like was trying to rely on building suspense as like the main thing to keep you engaged, that's just really bad. Like that's using the tools at your disposal in a way that does not complement the way or the thing that the movie's trying to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And the other thing too is like, if we can recognize this, then you think that they would too. And like, sometimes I think that they do throw in sequences and scenes like that when the film is short, and running needs some time.
Sure, yeah.
This one was almost 2 hours long, so it's like, hey, you could have cut that out.
Yeah.
not needed. But yeah, it gets to a point where it can distract, because if you're confused and trying to figure out what's going on and they just add more confusion to it, it's like, okay, at a certain point, like, we're gonna hit my level of like, okay, I don't give a shit anymore. Like, I just don't care to figure out what's going on. I'll ask you when we record, kind of thing. Because like, wait, what? I don't know. But so some of the sequences, I just kind of wish they would have asked me before they made the film. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and that been 8 wouldn't have been asking too much, right? Yeah, you're like their target demo.
Yeah,
but yeah, and I also kind of, following on that same point, I almost feel like the cast hurt them in this one, because they had Ben Kingsley, Forrest Whitaker, and Alfred Molina, who are all like really good actors, and I feel like they gave them more screen time. Because they're like, oh yeah, like this is clearly a strength of the movie, is like the cast. So we should spend more time with these people who are kind of like on the hunt. And I think that actually hurt the movie, because that was, those people were the least interesting part of it from a horror perspective.
Yeah, that piece, I think, alone was just one of the more confusing ones. I mean, until towards the end, but it was just like, you have like the tough guy, and they're like they brought me in for a specific reason. He doesn't catch him, he kills him. It's like, well, okay. He's
a freelance solution to government problems is what he is. Preston Lennox.
Yeah. That's the 90s, man.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, so I agree. It definitely was just like, I thought they were going to be a lot more important, and also like considering, that's the other thing, considering the subject of what's happening, like that's who you go after, not like the Navy SEALs or like anything like that, but you gotta get a psychiatrist to I don't know, man.
Yeah, it did have kind of that 90s like assemble the team. You got the scrappy team who's going to go figure this all out, which I feel like is one that we've seen, kind of a 90s movie trope that I know existed before that, but it just seems like the 90s doubled down on it.
Which, and that's probably where, like, I actually like that, like with games, video games, and like even with movies. Sure. And, think of like, the Western, that was a copy of the samurai film, Seven Samurai.
Hateful Eight?
It's close. It's the right idea. Sorry, I gotta find it.
I was just thinking of ones with numbers. 3:10 to Yuma?
Yeah, it's like Magnificent Seven. Like, that's kind of a similar concept. You got the knife thrower, you got the gambler. Like, I liked that concept. It probably comes from the 90s and like playing like X-Men video games and stuff, where like they have like a specialty, and I really like it. With this one, I was just bored. I was just like, you guys are wasting my damn time. Like, what's going to happen? There's going to be a crack in this team 100% because you guys can't even get along at the beginning. It just kind of frustrated me a little bit.
Oh, Press and Laura got along in the end. Am I right?
You're damn right.
I had to look up those character names to even make that reference.
I had them. I was looking at them. That's how I got the reference.
But no, because it was just, I feel like that having that team of people who have the different skill sets is almost like a shortcut to character development, because it's just creating like a clear, identifiable thing about the person for you. And where we've seen that work in other horror movies is then those people start kind of getting picked off one by one. And because the person, because the person's distinct role on the team, it's almost like they don't really have to give them a lot of backstory or anything, because you're like, oh no, not the guy that throws the knife or whatever. It's just a way for you to like quickly identify who they are without having to get a bunch of additional details about them, which wastes movie time. So for a throwaway character, but it kind of reminded me of like in Event Horizon, where you had kind of the scrappy crew that was there together, and then, you know, they were going through the ship and kind of one by one finding themselves in these bad situations. And like, you legit felt bad for them because you understood like their contribution to the crew that was trying to survive. Whereas in this one, I didn't feel like those roles actually mattered nearly as much to the overall story. They were kind of interchangeable as far as that went.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Did you have a favorite scene in this one besides all the unnecessary nudity?
Yeah. No, I think, honestly, I think it's the train, like early on in the film, the train sequence.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think I kind of enjoyed the most, mainly because like you're still like trying to figure out what's going on. You don't really know exactly what's going on. And then, like, is she being tortured? Like, what's Eleven going to do? And then, next thing you know, she's like a cocoon. This lady comes in to check on her, boom, gets, chewed up and spit out kind of thing.
That's a good point.
That happened. I was just going to say that moment that happened, I was just like, oh, she's not good. She's not good at all. Like, that set the
right.
stage. Like, that's what a dummy like me needs to understand who's good and bad in the movie, I guess.
No, I think that's a good point. It's because, like, at that point in the movie, I think you had the most unknowns. Like, you were still trying to figure out what was going on and kind of what the rules were. And then they were sort of like making it weird until it became, oh no, it's not just weird, it's super dangerous. And that's like a good kind of turning point in a horror movie generally.
Yeah. And, it was like Ben Kingsley's character, which, like, I don't know why I always just kind of associate him with being a bad guy. And so, like, I just assumed that they were the ones doing something sketchy, like the whole time. Even after this, I was like, someone did something sketchy, but yeah. So I think like the '90s almost kind of hurt me in a way because I'm like recognizing these characters as like bad guys on other films. I'm just like, oh, you guys did something wrong. Not this sweet, teenage girl, and the next thing you know, she's turning a damn cocoon and eating a lady, and you're just like, oh, you're the bad guy. They are telling the truth.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your favorite scene?
I think for me, it was closer to the end when they chased her into the sewer. That was the part where it started to feel the most like a real horror movie to me. It kind of reminded me of like the hallway scenes in Deep Rising, or I guess, again, referencing back to Event Horizon, where you've kind of got the crew wandering around getting picked off one by one. Like, that's just kind of classic horror. But that was the first time in this movie where I felt really like engaged to keep paying attention and like get that feeling of suspense. So I also, the CG got coarse heavy rough with the baby, but I did like the ending with like the tentacle attack, because that was where it was like, okay, there could be another one of these. The problem isn't really solved. That's more of the horror type ending, which I always prefer. So I guess just kind of that whole sequence from when she gets to the sewer till it ended.
Yeah, that was pretty. I mean, if there is like a full-on horror sequence, it's that for sure. Yeah, I'm with you with the baby though. Like, I think I was just like, okay, all right.
Distractingly bad.
Yeah. But then you think like, well, they supposedly grow really fast, so like that baby, like within like a couple of days, is probably like I don't know, a child at that point kind of thing. So it is kind of creepy, but
no. Yeah, I don't know that I felt terribly obligated to watch parts 2 or 3 of this one.
No, I don't. I get what they were trying to do, and mission accomplished.
Well, you know what I think they were trying to do?
Piss you off?
I think they were trying to steal Doppelganger's whole thing.
Oh, you're right.
Right? Did you not like get the, oh, this is the same story vibe a few times on this one? I mean, even down to like where it was taking place.
Yeah, it definitely felt like I'd watched the movie before.
Yeah. And I just like, for some reason I had in my head that Doppelganger also came out in 95. So I was like, okay, well, maybe there was like the same original screenplay or something, and then these were 2 adaptations or something. But no, Doppelganger was 93. So, yeah, it was kind of interesting to me because like everybody's heard of Species, but like nobody has heard of Doppelganger. And granted, like Doppelganger was weirder and harder to follow, but I also feel like I kind of liked it better of the 2.
You like Doppelganger more than this one? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. What about you?
That's a good one. I like Doppelganger. I didn't think it was bad though. Yeah, I would have to go Doppelganger. Yeah, I think that one had a little bit more like mystery and like. Yeah, I'm going Doppelganger. I didn't think this one was like incredibly awful. Like it was almost like, I think it was almost like what you would expect for like a 90s horror film in a way, just from the past episodes we've been recording, but also just like knowing the 90s is just like, yep, this checks out. It could either at the blink of an eye could just be made for TV movie, or it could be like a huge blockbuster hit. There's no in between with the 90s.
I think I'm just bitter in this one because she rejected the diabetic guy just because he was diabetic. That felt personal to me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
She's like, you're not worth mating with. And I'm like, oof.
Yeah. Oh, wait. We can't have long-tongued babies, you weirdo. Get out of here. Exactly. I don't want you to have my kid.
Yeah, that's probably why I didn't watch this movie in the 90s.
Yeah, rat bastards.
Had nothing for me.
Fuck this movie. I'm flipping this movie off. No one can see it, but I want you to know my middle finger's legit pointed at nothing.
That is exactly the solidarity I've come to expect from you and appreciate. Mm-hmm. So thank you, my friend.
I hate it. If you hate it, man, I'm in.
But yeah, overall, I don't think this one necessarily moves the needle for me all that much on 1995.
No.
We had watched The Fear and Rumpelstiltskin, but this one I just don't really see it making the average a whole lot better. Even though I think it was probably better than both those movies. Just not I think, by a lot.
Yeah, so I think this is just my opinion on it. This is like winning the NBA championship, but without your star player, but like a good 6th player or, a bench player, where it's like, he was good, but we didn't get the real thing. That's kind of what I felt like with this movie. This year. So it's like they tried. It's very similar to a few other 90s horror films, and it is horror at the end of the day, but it was like with a bench player, Kind
of like the Browns making it to the playoffs with Joe Flacco under center.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I follow.
You're rooting for it, but it's not going to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Ben Kingsley is great, but is he elite? So anyway, exactly. I'm glad we watched this. It was a good time. But I don't know that it's necessarily going to send any shockwaves through our rankings. So I think we're going to do a couple more of these and then go back and kind of recalibrate all of our rankings. And I'm excited to do that because I think some of the other movies that we are going to do, even in like the next couple of weeks, are going to have a lot more of an impact on it. So stay tuned, fam. It's going to get better from here. And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com or hit us up on the IG. That's what the kids call Instagram. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.